Hi, I'm Ethan, 25 now, but when I was 16 my life turned into something out of a psychological experiment gone wrong. That was the year my parents announced what they called the inheritance challenge. Their words, not mine. The prize? Every dollar they owned, the house, the business, the trust fund, everything. The losers? Cut off completely. No support, no college money, no family ties. Just out. I still remember that night. My dad stood by the fireplace like he was pitching to investors, not talking to his own kids. My mom sat beside him with her leather-bound family progress journal open, the same one she'd been scribbling in for years. I used to think it was some scrapbooking hobby. Turns out, she'd been grading US. Dad began, voice smooth, rehearsed. We've realized spreading our resources equally doesn't produce excellence. Life rewards competition, not comfort. So from this day forward, we'll invest in the child who proves most capable. He actually used the word invest. There were 4 of us, my older sister Claire, 18 and already the golden child, my twin brother Nathan, same age as me but softer, quieter, and my little brother Leo, 14, still half kid, half daydream. Claire went pale the second Dad said it. Leo laughed, asked if it was a game. Nathan didn't say a word. He just sat there, hands locked together like he was holding himself still. Mom opened her notebook and said, "We've developed a scoring system." Then she actually passed around printed sheets, categories, weights, percentages. Academics were 35%, extracurriculars 30%, household contributions 15%, and character evaluation 20%. That last one she said like she trademarked it. The first set of rankings was already done. Claire 94. Me, 86. Nathan 70. Leo 62. My name looked like second place in a race I never signed up for. I asked what would happen if we refused to participate. Dad's expression shifted into something cold I'd never seen before. Then you'll lose by default, he said. You live under my roof, you play by my rules. That night, the 4 of us hid in Claire's room like kids whispering after curfew. She paced, furious, calling it insane. Nathan just stared at the carpet. Leo sniffled into his hoodie, muttering that maybe if he tried harder, he could catch up. I tried to reason with them, maybe if we all refused to play, they'd drop it. Claire shot me a look like I was naive. If we don't play, I still win, she said. The next morning, the rankings were pinned to the fridge like trophies. Claire's name in green marker, mine in blue, Nathan's in yellow, Leo's in red. It wasn't a family anymore, it was a scoreboard. From that day on, everything changed. Claire became this perfect, smiling robot up at 5 a.m., cleaning the kitchen. Nathan stopped sketching and started forcing himself into debate club. I started calculating my every move, how many points I might lose if I forgot to take the trash out. Leo tried to keep up, but he was a kid. Kids don't know how to live under a grading curve. Mom's pen scratched through our days like a metronome. Every month she updated the scores, every mistake neatly translated into deductions. Dad watched like a coach keeping stats. I didn't realize it then, but that game would break us in ways no punishment ever could. By month 2, I'd already stopped thinking of my siblings as people, just numbers I had to beat. By the 3rd month, the competition wasn't just something that lived on paper, it breathed in every room of the house. Mom updated the rankings like she was managing stock prices. The fridge became a scoreboard, the dinner table an interrogation room. Dad would ask questions like, "What have you done today to improve your standing?" As if love required a resume. Claire thrived under it. She started wearing pencil skirts and speaking like she was already in a boardroom. She volunteered for every leadership position, stayed late at school to demonstrate initiative, and even practiced active listening with our parents, like she'd read a self-help manual on manipulation. She'd say things like, "You're right, Dad, I completely agree," and then glance at me with this smug little smile that said, "Another 5 points for me." Nathan tried to play along at first. He joined math club even though numbers made him anxious, stayed up until 2 working on essays he used to write for fun. But you could see it wearing him down. He'd stare at the pages until his hands started to shake. He stopped drawing altogether. His sketchbooks disappeared from his shelves, replaced by color-coded planners Mom had bought him to help him focus. Leo was the only one who couldn't fake it. He was 14, still goofy, still innocent. He left his sneakers in the hallway, forgot to make his bed, spilled milk at breakfast. Each tiny mistake cost him character points. I once overheard Mom tell Dad, He's simply not built for excellence. She said it like she was talking about a defective appliance. The allowances followed the rankings. Claire got $200 a month, me $120, Nathan $80, and Leo $30. Dad called it performance-based budgeting. It was the first time I ever saw Leo cry without trying to hide it. He said he'd been saving for a new bike, but now it would take him a year. I offered to help him buy it, but Mom overheard and snapped. That's interference with the natural order. It wasn't just money. It was food, attention, affection. Mom cooked Claire's favorite meals, bought her new clothes. To reward her discipline. When Nathan forgot to unload the dishwasher, she wrote it down. -5 points. When I aced the test, she said, "Good, but don't let it go to your head." The house started to sound different. No laughter. No TV. Just silence, broken by the scratch of her pen and the sound of someone quietly trying not to cry behind a door. Then, in the middle of that nightmare, came the first ranking announcement dinner. Mom printed a color chart and laid it out beside the lasagna like it was dessert. "Claire remains first with 95, she said proudly. "Ethan at 88, Nathan at 74, Leo at 61. She smiled as if she just announced our SAT scores. Nathan's fork slipped. Leo whispered, "I'll never catch up." "And me?" I smiled. Because I knew if I didn't, they'd call it a lack of gratitude, and dock me points. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in the dark. I used to dream about college, about building something that mattered. Now I only thought in percentages. Every breath, every word was strategy. That's when I realized, this wasn't a family competition. It was survival training. And we were all losing. The breaking point came 6 months in. By then, none of us spoke unless it was to report something productive. Family dinners had turned into performance reviews. Every word felt like an audition for affection. Nathan had stopped sleeping through the night. I'd find him in the bathroom at 2 a.m., hyperventilating over a chemistry book. He said he couldn't slow down or he'd fall behind. His eyes were red, his hands trembled constantly. I told him to talk to Mom, to tell her he was drowning. He said, "She already knows. She's measuring how long it takes me to sink." Leo had started peeing the bed again. 14 years old and terrified to exist. He'd cry when the rankings went up, his little red bar always at the bottom. Mom called it emotional immaturity. Dad called it a failure to adapt. Claire, meanwhile, was thriving at least on paper. Her grades were perfect, her resume spotless. She'd dropped her boyfriend, cut off her friends, even quit the art club she used to love because it wasn't strategic. She was a hollow, smiling version of herself, the kind who said, "Yes, sir," like she was auditioning for sainthood. I was doing everything I could to hold steady straight A's, debate captain, community service hours, but the cost was eating me alive. I stopped seeing my friends, stopped sleeping. I'd hear that pen scratching in Mom's notebook at all hours, recording something, always recording. Then, one night, I woke up to a noise, soft gasping from down the hall. I found Nathan on the bathroom floor clutching Mom's sleeping pills. His face was pale, his lips trembling. He'd taken 5 already. When he saw me, he said, "I just want to stop being graded." I grabbed the bottle and dumped it down the sink. We sat there on the cold tile until morning. I didn't cry. I just stared at the medicine label and felt something harden in me. The next day, I told my parents what happened. Mom didn't even look shocked. She said, "He's dramatizing to avoid accountability." Dad nodded like it was a business analysis. Then Mom did something that burned into my memory. She flipped to a new page in her notebook and wrote -10 character points, emotional manipulation. That's when I snapped. "He almost died!" I yelled. My voice cracked, my chest felt tight. Dad just looked at me like I was being hysterical. "Life is competitive, Ethan. The weak don't get rewarded for breaking down." I remember staring at them, realizing these weren't parents anymore, they were project managers running an experiment. And we were the test subjects. That night, while everyone slept, I opened a new notebook and started documenting everything: the rankings, the punishments, the formula changes, the psychological fallout. I wrote down every cruel quote, every breakdown, every cry I heard through the walls. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew this: if I didn't start keeping receipts, no one would ever believe what was happening inside that house. After that night, I stopped pretending. I played along just enough to stay off their radar, but inside, something had gone cold. Every smile was calculated. Every "Yes, Mom" rehearsed. I started saving everything I could: documents, text messages, photos of the fridge charts, evidence. The next few months blurred into a kind of quiet insanity. Mom kept changing the formula whenever results didn't fit her narrative. When I pulled ahead of Claire in grades, she suddenly increased the character weighting from 20% to 40%. When Nathan started volunteering at an animal shelter and his scores rose, she decided community involvement only counted if it demonstrated leadership. The system was rigged. Claire knew it too, but she didn't care. She'd already learned the only rule that mattered: agree with them and you win. She became their echo. Every sentence Dad said, she repeated with a smile. She wasn't competing anymore, she was auditioning to inherit the throne. Nathan stopped eating properly. He lost so much weight his clothes hung off him. He'd flinch when Dad raised his voice. I tried to get him to talk to a counselor at school, but he was terrified. "They'll find out," he whispered. "They always find out." Leo, he was unraveling faster than any of us. He got into fights at school, started lying about homework, stopped caring entirely. Mom called it laziness. I saw it for what it was: defeat. One night I found him in the garage sitting beside the washing machine, crying so hard he could barely breathe. He said, "I wish I wasn't born last." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there and let him cry until the spin cycle drowned us out. That was when I realized we weren't just being abused. We were being ranked into extinction. And then, out of nowhere, came the summer performance vote. Dad gathered us at dinner and said there wasn't enough money for all four of us to attend our summer programs. He'd let us vote on how to allocate the budget. Claire's Yale Leadership Intensive cost $9,000. My debate camp, $2,500. Nathan's art workshop, $1,800. Leo's soccer camp, $1,000. Dad said, "We can fund either one elite opportunity or four mediocre ones. Discuss." Claire voted for herself instantly. Leo voted for fairness. Nathan looked at me. I could see in his eyes he wanted to vote fair, but he was too scared. I said it for both of us. Split it evenly. Dad's face tightened. "Mediocrity by committee," he muttered. A week later, he announced that because we couldn't make a decisive leadership choice, nobody was going anywhere. That summer was hell. No camps, no trips, just house chores and constant evaluations. Mom started assigning points for cleaning, for politeness, for how quickly we responded when she called our names. It was like living inside a corporate training manual. By August, Nathan was barely functional. Leo barely spoke. And Claire, somehow, was still smiling like it was all normal. I didn't see it yet, but that summer was the beginning of my rebellion. The point where I stopped hoping they'd stop and started planning how to make them answer for it. By the time senior year started, I was done hoping for change. I didn't believe in fairness. I believed in leverage. And I was quietly building mine. I started scanning copies of Mom's notebook pages whenever she wasn't home. Took photos of the rankings on the fridge, recorded snippets of conversations on my phone. I even interviewed Leo, in secret, asking him how the competition made him feel. His answer was simple. "Like I don't matter unless I win." Claire still wore her perfect mask. Smiled like a winner, floated like royalty. She even changed her voice when speaking to our parents, softer, smoother, almost like an actress playing ideal daughter. Nathan was barely hanging on. He stopped drawing altogether, spent his time cramming for subjects he hated. One night, I found him Googling how to build a college resume in 6 months. His face looked hollow. Like someone who hadn't slept in days, which was probably true. Leo? He was 13 now, but looked 10. Gaunt, pale, angry. His grades had plummeted. He'd stopped caring. When I asked him why he didn't try anymore, he said, "They already decided I'm last. What's the point?" And he was right. The gap between Claire and the rest of us had grown. Her score hovered around 93. Mine stayed in the mid-80s. Nathan was stuck at 74. Leo had fallen to 55. That's when I made a decision. If no one else would protect them, I would. Even if it cost me everything. It started small. I dropped subtle hints to our guidance counselor, Mr. Howell. Said things like, "My brother's struggling under pressure at home." Asked vague questions about parent-led competitions and psychological stress. He looked concerned, But unless I gave details, there was nothing he could do. I wasn't ready to go public. Not yet. But I was watching. Documenting. Preparing. Then December hit and Leo stopped going to school. At first, he faked sick. Then he just stopped pretending. He'd get dressed, leave the house, and walk to the library or the park. He'd return at 3:30 like nothing happened. He did this for 3 weeks before the school finally called. The explosion at home was nuclear. Dad screamed. Mom deducted 15 character points in one sitting. Claire rolled her eyes and said, "This is why you're last." Leo just stood there, face blank, like he wasn't even in the room. That night, he came to my door and handed me a flash drive. "You might want this," he said. Inside were screenshots, Mom's emails, planning docs, a master spreadsheet of the ranking history. One file was labeled Long-Term Plan. I opened it. It was a timeline. A breakdown of how, after Claire graduated college, they would formally disown the bottom 3 children. There it was, in black and white. We weren't just being evaluated. We were being phased out. I stared at the screen so long my eyes burned. Then I emailed it to myself, copied it to a backup drive, and locked it away. The next morning, I called Dr. Simmons. The therapist Mr. Howell had quietly recommended. I booked an appointment. I told her everything. 2 hours later, she asked one question. "Do you believe your siblings are in danger?" I thought of Leo's dead-eyed stare. Of Nathan with the pill bottle. Of Claire, smiling through a system that rewarded cruelty. "Yes," I said. "I do." And that's when everything changed. Dr. Simmons didn't waste time. She said she was a mandated reporter. If she suspected abuse, she had to contact Child Protective Services whether I agreed or not. I remember sitting in her office, hands shaking, asking, "Even if it makes things worse?" She said softly, "Sometimes worse is the first step toward better." The CPS visit came a week later. A woman named Patricia knocked on our door unannounced, wearing a calm face that looked built for chaos. She spoke with each of us separately. I told her everything: the rankings, the formulas, the punishments, the mental breakdowns. I showed her the screenshots Leo found and my notebook full of dates and quotes. Nathan told her bits and pieces, voice trembling but honest. Leo barely spoke, just nodded at everything I said. "Claire?" She defended our parents like her life depended on it. "It's just structure," she told Patricia. "They're helping us prepare for adulthood." I could see the sympathy fade from Patricia's eyes, replaced by that bureaucratic sorrow I didn't yet understand. She photographed the charts on the fridge, copied Mom's binder pages, even asked for the family rulebook. Dad called it a misunderstanding. Mom smiled like she was talking to a school principal. "We just believe in accountability," she said. For 3 weeks, Patricia dug through our lives: school, doctors, teachers, neighbors. Every adult outside that house saw us as the perfect family. 4 clean, polite kids with great grades and ambitious parents. There were no bruises. No empty fridge. No slurs or threats anyone could record. Just pressure and fear so quiet it looked like success. When the investigation closed, Patricia called me privately. "Ethan, I believe you," she said. "But emotional abuse like this doesn't always meet removal criteria. I'll keep checking in. But for now," she paused. "For now, try to stay safe." That was the night my parents turned on me completely. They didn't say it outright, but they knew. They knew I'd reported them. Mom tore the chart off the fridge and rewrote it from memory, except this time I was last. Dad didn't yell, he didn't need to. He just said, "You betrayed the family." Claire stopped speaking to me entirely. Nathan avoided eye contact. Leo whispered, "Thank you," when no one else was around. That's what kept me from breaking, knowing at least one of them understood why I did it. The punishment was subtle and cruel. They cut my allowance to 0, reallocating it to the higher performers. They refused to sign my college applications, said I lacked loyalty. Mom even deducted points for suspicious behavior. Every mealtime was silent now. No one breathed too loud. The fridge stayed blank, but we all knew the rankings by heart. And yet, even as I sat there, marked as the traitor, I felt something strange, a kind of freedom. They could punish me, isolate me, erase me from their game, but I'd already broken the spell. I'd exposed the experiment. And I wasn't done yet. College acceptance letters began rolling in that spring, and they hit our family like grenades. Claire got into Stanford and 6 other big-name schools. Mom cried, Dad made a toast, and they announced that she'd receive full financial support. When my acceptance came, with a full scholarship, by the way Dad called it. A lucky break. He said it didn't count as achievement since someone else is footing the bill. Nathan got into a public college nearby, no scholarship. They offered to pay 10%. Leo, still 16, just watched it all unfold with hollow eyes, like he'd already read the script. I packed for college in silence. No one offered help. Claire didn't say goodbye. Dad shook my hand like a stranger. Mom stood by the door, lips tight, and said, "You'll regret this rebellion someday." I left anyway. I thought distance would mean freedom. But even 300 miles away, the competition still lived under my skin. I checked my GPA obsessively. I worked 2 jobs, terrified of failure, because failure had always meant exile. Nathan started sending me emails, short ones at first, then longer, more frantic. "Leo's not okay," one said. "They barely talked to him." Another. "He found proof they drafted legal papers to disown us. It's real." I drove home that weekend, picked Nathan up from campus, and together we confronted them. The house felt smaller, colder. Leo showed us the files himself, Mom's document folder titled Legacy Plan. Spreadsheets projecting savings after each of us was phased out. When I asked how they could do that to their children, Dad didn't even flinch. "You had your chance to prove yourselves. Claire is the only one who earned it." Something in me finally snapped. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and said, "Say that again." He did. Calmly. Confidently. I let him talk about investments, about weak links, about return on parenting. Then I told him exactly what that recording meant. "You're done," I said. "If you don't end this and get help, every person you know, church, clients, neighbors, will hear this." He went pale. Mom stammered that I was bluffing. I wasn't. By sunset, the charts were gone, the notebooks locked away, and a family therapist scheduled by force. I didn't feel victorious. Just exhausted. Like I'd finally amputated something poisonous. But the wound still bled long after. 3 years have passed since that night. The rankings ended, but the damage never really left. Claire graduated with full parental support, and immediately cut us off. She sends holiday photos, sometimes smiling beside our parents in expensive places, like the past never existed. Nathan took 6 years to finish school while working full-time, and he's still paying off debt they promised to cover. Leo lives with a foster family now. He left when he was 17 after a final blowout. I helped him get placed. He still calls me every Sunday, just to talk about normal things. He says the silence in his new home is the kind that heals. As for me? I'm 25, working in social advocacy, living alone in a small apartment that I pay for with money I earned. I still see Dr. Simmons every other week. We talk about how some scars don't look like bruises, how trauma doesn't need a belt to be real. Some days I believe I'm okay. Other days I still hear my mom's pen scratching numbers I'll never live up to. My parents don't believe they did anything wrong. They think they built resilience. They call what happened a misunderstanding. When people ask why I don't go home, I say, because I'm not a number anymore. That's not bitterness. That's survival. The notebook I kept, the one filled with scores and punishments, and tears, it's stored in a fireproof safe. Not because I want revenge. Because I want to remember. I want to remind myself that love isn't conditional. That no one should have to compete for safety. I never got an apology. I never expected one. But I've made peace with one thing: the competition didn't define me. It exposed them. And I refuse to pass that legacy on. This ends with me. And if I ever have kids, they'll never hear the words, "Earn your place," at the dinner table. They'll never wonder if love is a scoreboard. I'll teach them that value isn't a contest, and family isn't something you win, it's something you protect. I didn't get that growing up. But I survived it. And that means I get to build something better from the wreckage. Something real. Something safe. Something that doesn't come with a ranking.